Hey everybody. Yeah, it's kind of a strange comparison that you see down there, but I want to compare um, basically what's what the staff at Season, which is basically Sonic's at AM Season 3, is doing, and I want to compare it to what's currently been going on for, well, many years now, and that is Garrett. His name is Garrett Gassatine or something. Garrett Gassatine. He has a YouTube channel called The Thief Archive, and basically what he's doing with what has been dubbed the Recobbled cuts, the Recobbled cut of the animated movie The Thief and the Cobbler. Now you might say, well, that is kind of a strange comparison, isn't it? Yeah, it is a bit of a strange comparison, because when you think about it, here you have, because in a sense they do have similarities, because here you have both sides trying to recreate or create something that could have been, had it been given a chance. The staff at Season, which is Season 3, pretty much is trying to recreate or create what could have been potentially the third season had the show not been canceled. And I have shown total support to them because of that, and I know a lot of people have. And I'm sure they're going to get a lot more support when they go down to the comic conventions in the next few months. Heck, even if they went to E3, I'm sure they'd get some support. But the similarities there, the identical similarities, or almost identical, if you will, is the fact that on the other side, you have this Garrett person that for years has been trying to recreate what Richard Williams, who has been dubbed one of the greatest animators of any generation, he's trying to basically recreate what Richard Williams had set out to do many years ago. Well, not many years ago, but many decades ago. Basically, 44 decades ago, if you will. Yeah, essentially, actually 5 decades ago, going on 5 decades now. He had essentially sought out to do almost 5 decades ago, in 1964. And if anybody that paid attention to the story, that's an animation buff and all that, and knows the story about the Thief and the Cobbler, then you pretty much know what I'm going to say. If you've watched Nostalgia Critic's review on it and heard what he's had to say about it, then you know exactly what happened. You see, but in case you don't, here's what happened. You see, Richard Williams, wanted to make The Thief and the Cobbler his masterpiece. He wanted to make it one of these standards of animation, and he was doing this at a time when Disney was not doing as many animated films as they normally would. The only animated films you had at that time were from like Warner Brothers, or the places like Warner Brothers, and mostly Hanna-Barbera. I mean, 1964 saw the release of Hanna-Barbera's first animated feature film in Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, and then a few years later you saw The Man Called Flintstone. But the point is, Richard Williams, from what I've read about and heard by watching Nostalgia Critic and so on and so forth, is Richard Williams wanted to take advantage, from what I can understand, was trying to take advantage of this opportunity. But because he had so much on his plate, I guess, and didn't really have I don't know if he didn't have the financing or something or whatever. Essentially, Richard Williams took a lot of time on this project because he wanted it to be a defining animated feature. He wanted it to be a masterpiece. Not just his masterpiece, but a masterpiece in animation history. So for years and years and years, he kept working on this, decade to decade. I mean, he went working on it he was working on it throughout the 60s, throughout the 70s, the 80s. And he had a lot of opportunities to get this done. He had some people backing him up, too. He had, I think, Disney back him up at one time. He had Warner Brothers, who became the closest to backing him up. But unfortunately, those all fell through. And again, he had a lot of other things he was working on. He was working on the Raggedy Ann and Andy movie. He was working on A Christmas Carol. He was working on the animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You name it. So at times when he wasn't busy, he would dip back in and make the animation and do not just the writing for the story, but go back in and do the animation for the story itself, or at least help out in that department. And he did have some people come on board and help him. But again, like I said, because he did not have the financing enough or something like that, I'm not too sure, he just couldn't get it done as fast as he would like to get it done. And also, from what a lot of people have said, that he's one of those animators that's a perfectionist. That once he starts to do something, starts to animate something, he wants to animate it to the point that it's perfect. That it's going to be something that when people go to the theaters and see it, they'll be like, "Oh wow, that is so great." Unfortunately, though, as time and decades went on, he couldn't get it done the way he wanted. And despite having the closest deal he ever had with Warner Brothers wanted it done at a certain time, and he couldn't get it done at that time. I think he had like 10 to 15, from what I read, 10 to 15 minutes left to animate and do, and he couldn't get it done. And Warner Brothers dropped him. And then another company came in, the Completion Bond Company. They bought the rights, threw Richard Williams off, basically fired Richard Williams, got him off the project, brought in other animators, an all-star voice cast, if you will, to, basically re-record the lines and stuff and add dialogue to it. Because essentially, here's the thing. The original version that Richard Williams wanted to do was almost a complete silent movie. The only vocalness you had was from Vincent Price, who did the voice of Zigzag, from the princess, from the king, from One-Eyed, from the nanny, if you will, the maid. Those were and even the soldier who was warning them about it. Those were the only essential dialogues you had. The thief was more grunts and wheezes, and the cobbler, Tack, was almost completely silent to the end. So, yeah, so when you think about it, basically what happens, the Completion Bond Company took what Richard wanted to do, said, no, fuck that. This is not, basically said, fuck that. We're going to bring in our own people. We're going to bring in our own all-star cast. We're going to have Miramax help us out, which was a division of Disney. And we're going to bring in some other animators. We're going to show them what was done, see if they can copy that, and give it a more modern update. Yeah. Crazy, right? Completely crazy. But they gave it more of a modern update because of one reason. Basically, at that time, as Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critic, pointed out in his Quest for Camelot deal, a lot of movie studios, within certain companies or not, tried to do what Disney was doing by doing what Disney was doing. So what did they do? They basically took an essentially almost silent animated film, and they turned it into a musical, a Disney-esque musical. That's what they did. And believe it or not, there were, from what I've read online, there's a lot of fans that actually like this version. Yeah, even though as the person that was put in charge of completing it, finally, said that Completion Bond Company told him to complete it and finish it as cheaply and as quickly as he can. Apparently, a lot more people like it, and the obvious reason for that is the fact that they are used to films being like that. They're used to films being where you have the characters talking and all that, and you have mostly musical numbers. They're used to that. But if you're an animation buff and you look at the Recobbled cut that's being done, has been done on several occasions, being redone again with more scenes and stuff that have yet to be released and stuff like that, work prints, if you will. That are actually, from what I can tell, being reanimated as well, basically being colored in now. You'll obviously enjoy the Recobbled version better than you would the Miramax Completion Bond Company version. But it's all about debate. I mean, for me, YouTube has both films, and I'm trying to get both films, so I can at least say, hey, on one hand, I have the movie, on the other, I have the original version that was intended to be, and here I have the Miramax version. And the story, if you will. But again, the reason I say there's a bit of a strange comparison there is because here you have Season, the staff at Season. They're trying to basically essentially take what the late Ben Hurst wanted to do and animate it and bring it to animated life, which you would be able to watch exclusively here on YouTube, as well as take other original stories that they along with fans had made out of this, and basically put that into animated form, and that could be seen exclusively on YouTube, thus finishing not just what Ben Hurst wanted to do, but finishing what, from the ideas they heard from the late Ben Hurst, basically finishing what he would originally intended to be that third season. So yeah, I know it's a strange comparison, but basically you have two sides that are similar in the fact that they're trying to trying to create or recreate something that could have been good if given the chance. So again, I know it's a strange comparison, but to me, when I look at what this Garrett guy is doing, and then when I see what Season's doing, I'm thinking, the staff at Season's doing, I'm thinking, wow, what a comparison. What a similarity. These two sides are trying to recreate or create something that, if given a chance, could have been good. And I think anybody would agree with that. So that's all I'm going to say, though, on it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with the comparison between the two? Let me know what you guys think down below. Comments are greatly welcomed, and I'll talk to you later.